Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us at the Vision for Volunteering Collaboration Conference today. We are really excited to have you and to talk about all things collaboration and vision for volunteering. So thank you so much for being here. We've got some really great speakers. So I'm just going to jump right in. And again, I'm really sorry we're running a few minutes late. Hopefully you're all nice and cozy, got a cup of tea and you're ready to go. So my name is Georgia Sanders. I am the Networks and Engagement Officer for the Vision for Volunteering and part of the Vision for Volunteering team and partnership. I'd really like to get to know who's here today, so please do feel free to introduce yourself to one another in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from and maybe what inspired you to join us today, what you're hoping to get out of the day as well. That would be really great. So here's what's coming up. We've got a bit of a welcome and an intro with me, which I'm doing now. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about the vision for volunteering. I will try and get a gauge of how well you know the vision already. So I can see sort of how deep I need to go into that. I'm sure some of you have been to these events already, so we'll try to whistle start through. And then we're just going to talk a bit about collaboration specifically and what that means and why it's relevant to the vision. And then we've got some fantastic speakers. So we've got Sam Clift joining us from the London Transport Museum. He's going to be talking to us about collaborating on volunteering strategies. We'll have a quick break to grab a cup of tea, and then we're going to come straight back in with Lisa Andrews from CVS Tendring, and she's going to talk to us about collaborative volunteering in practice, which I'm looking forward to both of these speakers so much. I'm really excited. It's going to be a great morning. And then we've got a little bit of space at the end just to do some networking. So we've got some prompt questions and we can sort of chat to people within the same sector and meet new people and have a bit of a chat in those breakout rooms as well. And then there's a bit of time for questions from me at the end, but there'll also be time for questions from the speakers as we go. So that's built into their sessions as well. So first of all, I'm just going to hand over to a Slido poll now, just to get an idea of how well you currently understand the vision for volunteering. So if you know the vision for volunteering really well, you could explain it to a friend. You've been to a bunch of these sessions already. That's a 5. If this is the first time you've heard of the vision, then that's a 1, and then anything in between. So if we could go straight to that Slido poll now, have a quick answer of that, and we'll get a gauge of how well everybody knows. So there should be a button on the right of the screen that says have your say. Click that and just complete the poll and let us know how well you know the vision for volunteering. So I'll just give you a few minutes for everybody to answer, and while you do that, I'm going to have a look through the chat and see where everybody's joining us from. So people coming from all over, which is fantastic. Love it. I'm really excited to have you all here. Okay, fantastic. All right, so a lot of threes. A lot of you know the vision quite well. Maybe could do with learning a little bit more, maybe could delve a little bit deeper, and that's absolutely fabulous. Okay, I've got a couple of 1s, a few 5s though, which is fantastic. So thank you for knowing us so well. And then if we could go back to the slides, please. Fantastic. So for those of you who are the 1s and 2s and maybe the 3s, I'm just going to do a quick whistle stop recap of what the vision is and why we've sort of all been brought here today. So the Vision for Volunteering is a 10-year collaborative project. We started almost 2 years ago now, designed to create a better future for volunteering. Now, that is hugely overarching. That's very, very broad. But we get a bit deeper into it with the different themes, which is what we're here to talk about today. We are a collaborative project ourselves. So in that theme of collaboration, there are 7 partner organisations who lead the vision. So that's the NCVO, that is AVM, NAVCA, Volunteering Matters, Sport England, Department for Culture, Media and Sport, and Muslim Charities Forum, who joined us most recently in July, I believe. And so why is the vision needed? Well, we've spoken to more than 350 people from over 300 organisations and to help to design the vision for volunteering. In late 2021, a steering group ran 14 workshops. We carried out numerous interviews and received 43 written submissions as well from volunteers, volunteer involving organisations and other stakeholders. And then in May 2021, we launched the vision for volunteering itself. We realised through doing this research that volunteering isn't currently accessible for everybody. It's not equally enjoyable for everybody. We've seen huge changes happen for volunteers over the last 4 years since the COVID-19 pandemic and the way that their activities worked. And not all of these changes were positive, and those that were positive, not all of them were permanent. We're also seeing changing patterns in who is volunteering and how they're volunteering and in what activities and in what roles they're volunteering. So through all of this, we pulled together 5 key themes, and they're really where we're trying to make the most impact in volunteering and improve what volunteering is. And we're doing that through things like these sessions, through networking, through collaborating with other organisations, and creating bigger projects. So the Vision for Volunteering tackles 5 key themes, and these key themes are designed to look at what volunteers need now and what do they need during the next 10 years. So we're not saying we're going to work on it behind the scenes and the changes will happen in 10 years' time. We want to make iterative progress. What do they need in order to make their most effective contributions? How do we capture new practice and technology and harness it to create a better future for volunteering? And how can we let go of practices that no longer serve us and tackle some of volunteering's most long-standing inequalities? So we've put together these 5 key themes that we think need the most work. So there's awareness and appreciation, power, equity and inclusion, collaboration, and experimentation. And as you know, we are here today to talk all things collaboration. So collaboration, what do we mean by that? Well, we want a future where collaboration and volunteering is natural and fluid and flexible and spontaneous part of volunteering. We want people to do great stuff together because they want to. We want people to be driven by their shared interests or their ambitions. We want people to be proactively supported to do those things by working within the volunteering system. We should recognise the ability of communities to drive collaboration, and we must value and add value to collaboration. There should be a radical shift in emphasis towards building a community-led coalition of interest and collaborative activity, rather than creating top-down and imposed partnership working. So essentially, we want to help people to work together. By 2032, at the end of the 10-year project, this is what we want collaboration in volunteering to look like. We want organisations to support and champion communities to drive their own collaborative activity. We don't want there to be any need to own an activity or own a project where communities might own that. We want to nurture and support new people and organisations to engage in projects. We want people to be able to, and volunteers to be able to move between organisations and between projects, and for that to be normal and to be welcome. We will share people and talent and connections. We'll help each other and learn from each other and recognise the value that one another bring. So how will that feel for the volunteers? So in all of our research, we've pulled out some great quotes from volunteers of how they want to feel in each of these sections and each of these themes. Volunteers want to feel supported to bring their skills, their knowledge, and their experience to working with new people and new groups. We want people to be encouraged to work with people and organisations that share goals. So that is a quick whistle-stop tour of the vision for volunteering and collaboration and why it is important and what that looks like in best practice and in emerging practice. So I'm going to hand over to you again now, another little Slido poll, exactly the same way you did before. Just to let you know, these questions are anonymous. They are just to give us an idea of how we're doing in the room. Might take these numbers away and use them elsewhere, but they'll all be completely anonymous. So it's not a data gathering exercise. We are just looking to see how you think you're doing in collaboration at the moment. So there's just 4 questions. How would you rate your organization for collaboration in volunteering? How would your volunteers rate you for supporting collaboration in volunteering? And what are you doing well and what needs improvement? So I'm just going to give you a little bit of time again now to answer those questions. Just have a look over to the Slido on the right-hand side, and in a moment or two, we will go through and see what you've said. And in the meantime, I'm just going to have a quick look through the chat again, just to respond to Vicky. Yes, you will be receiving a copy of the slides today. There will be a recording of the entire session available. So I'll just give you a few moments now to answer some questions. And then once we get some answers coming through, we'll take a look at those responses on the Slido. So hopefully we're going to start getting some responses through. Okay. So it looks like we've got some answers coming through now. So we've got some 3s and some 4s for how you think your organization is doing in collaboration, which is fantastic. Quite a few 5s as well. No 1s at all, I think. So that's fantastic. That's really, really good news. Okay, so you're doing well. Fabulous. And how would your volunteers rate you? How would you rate your volunteers? And your volunteers, you've rated as 5 mostly. That's fantastic as well. Okay, so quite widespread, that one. And then let's take a look at some word clouds. So what are you doing well? Local, that's fabulous. Working strategically, excellent. Encourage, I love that. Encouraging is coming up a couple of times. Co-creation, brilliant. Those are all really, really great. Fantastic. Community and belonging as well. I love that. And then let's see where you could improve. Being brave. Yes, I think that's one that all of us could do better at. Involvement, sharing. Encourage is in the improvement pile as well. So I think encouragement is clearly very, very important to all of us, just maybe not all of us knowing how to include it or use it. Fabulous. Okay. Thank you so much. If we pop back to the slides, thanks. Great. So we're running a little bit early. I am just going to have a double check and make sure our first speaker is ready for us. Sam, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm here.
Fabulous. So I'd just like to hand over now to Sam Clift from the London Transport Museum, who's going to be talking about collaborating on a volunteering strategy. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you, Georgia, and morning, everyone. It's good to be here. This is my debut speaking at a conference, so I hope it will go smoothly for me, and you'll learn a thing or two from me. So I'm going to be with you for the next hour or so. The format is going to be, I'm going to run through this presentation talking about how we've collaborated on our new volunteering strategy over the last year. For the first half an hour or so. Then we're going to have time for some Q&A afterwards. So if you do have any questions along the way, feel free to pop them into the chat. And I think George is going to help collate those so we can feed those back afterwards. And then we're going to have time for some breakout discussion, hopefully, as well. So we'll be able to split you off into groups and get you thinking a bit about putting strategies together in your own organizations as well. So that's the grand plan for the next hour. So just a brief intro for myself. So I'm the volunteer resource manager at the London Transport Museum. So I lead on essentially lead on the volunteering experience at the museum. We have 3 sites across London, both in central London and in West London. And volunteering's been a big part of the work the museum does in terms of providing access for visitors to our sites, interpreting our collection, and helping to maintain and restore our collection and preserve it as well, and many other things in between. So I'll be delving into some of this in a short while. So I am not at the wheel today when it comes to sharing this presentation. So I've got Alistair kindly working in the background to share my slides. So Alistair, could we move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So a little bit of light background for you, just to give some context for this. So London Transport Museum is a charity. We are the world's leading museum of urban transport. We are very closely tied to Transport for London as well. So all of our employees are Transport for London staff. So we wear several different hats essentially. We currently have around 300 people volunteering their time with us a year, and that number's kind of at the moment is going up year on year, giving a significant amount of time. And as you can see from the figures on the screen, we have many more volunteers and staff that help us to deliver all that we do. So volunteers are really integral to so much of what we're able to make possible, really, at the London Transport Museum. Our volunteers have been involved for a very long time, almost since the inception of the museum, which started with the Friends of the London Transport Museum, who are a separate charity and who are volunteer run, but they help to finance and facilitate various projects, and volunteering's just expanded from there. We have Investing in Volunteers award status, which is the kind of national kite mark through NCVO. Sorry, I think it's Volunteers Now, for good volunteer management practice in the UK. We've just had that renewed in the last year. So that helps us set some standards of what we expect of our staff, in terms of their work with volunteers. And we also have several funding strands when it comes to volunteer projects as well. So currently we're a national portfolio organisation with the Arts Council, and we also have lottery funding as well. In terms of the volunteer resource team, so I am the volunteer resource manager for that team. So I've got a team of 2 coordinators as well as volunteer administrators. So we centrally manage volunteering across other departments. So we have 6 other departments who have, I think we have around 20 staff at the moment who are locally managing volunteer teams, and most of those staff are not full-time volunteer managers. So they are curators, they are librarians, they are customer service staff, and many others as well. And they're often managing volunteers for sort of 10 or 20% of their week usually. So my team is the core team, if you like, the kind of HR type team. We manage our policies and processes and training and help to develop volunteering as an experience and support all the different needs and demands. So we've got fingers in lots of pies across volunteering. Alistair, can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So what difference will a volunteering strategy make? So I can appreciate not everyone may be familiar with volunteering strategies, may not have one, or may be thinking about having one. So I just wanted to touch on some of the benefits really of having one. It's been a really beneficial way to bring the whole organisation together and start having dialogue across teams, across sites, and particularly with those who are much further removed from volunteers. and to be able to have a more senior level dialogue as well. Like it's been a really good route to creating platforms for our senior leadership to engage more in volunteering. Um, and additionally, I think what's extra valuable is it's a way to show to volunteers how much you value the work that they do and the support that they give by having the longer term investment. And the strategy helps to clarify that, it helps to communicate that, and it helps to give some transparency to some of those investments that you're looking to make down the line, really. So I think it's really beneficial in providing support around all of those. Next slide, please, Alistair. So at the museum, we've just rolled out our second strategy. So we actually had a strategy in place from 2017, which was something I put together as a first time. Um, so as part of our review and our new strategy, I did a bit of reflective work around what worked well, what didn't work so well around that, and what we wanted to develop going forward. So the strategy unfortunately we hit the pandemic in early 2020, so we only really got to experience roughly half of the strategy before it sort of fizzled out, really. So, and like many, we had the pandemic, and for us volunteering, fini almost stopped completely for the best part of 2 years, and then we went through a recovery period as well. So it was quite a significant, had quite a significant impact on volunteers. But all of that context was very much wrapped up in the new strategy going forward. We were very keen to apply for some funding for our strategy this time around because we thought bringing in some external support and being much more thorough when it came to having a consultation, involving different audiences and different teams, and having some time and capacity to help to facilitate that as part of that kind of research phase and understanding what the strategy needs to be was something that was lacking the first time around. So that was something that we applied for this time through the Friends, and they fortunately accepted that proposal. So we had a consultant brought on board as part of that, which I'll touch on a little bit more through the presentation. I was very keen, as I say, to have some wider engagement with volunteers and staff. It's very easy to, it sounds a bit cliche, but it's very easy to sit in an office and feel like you're in the best position to write a strategy and just sit down and write a strategy, and it then be something you filter through and say, this is a document that we now have. And I was very keen to make sure that this new strategy was brought to life in lots of ways. It's operationalized, it's embedded in our working practice. It's a strategy that's communicated and it is known about, and that we're making reference back to our strategy in a lot of the work we're doing. And we didn't really get to that part last time around, so that was a lesson learned there. And for us to start looking at how we review the progress that we're making in strategy and look at what impacts are happening in terms of capacity, in terms of risk management, and various other challenges that can come around through being a very operational charity with volunteers. So there was a lot that we took away as part of that helped frame our new strategy. Next slide, please. So the approach we took with this strategy, I was very, very keen that we involved our volunteers, our staff who managed our volunteers, our middle management, and our senior leadership. And we even involved our trustees, essentially our board, in this work as well at various stages. So I think it's the closest thing we've come to having a kind of people strategy, if you like, having this volunteering strategy, because it involves every team, every department, and everybody has a stake to play and a part to play in the strategy in some kind of way. And I was really keen that we involve those different voices, those different experiences through that kind of discovery phase in the strategy, so that we were creating a strategy really that reflected what all our different needs were, and we weren't just working in an echo chamber, or we weren't just relying on one team to provide the substance. And part of our messaging around that was making sure that volunteers and staff were on board with how this strategy was going to be rolled out and what commitments were going to be associated around that. So as part of our consultation, I think we engaged with around 25 volunteers for our workshops and roughly around 15 staff. So about 40 in total, but I think there might have been a few more on top of that. So that was, as you can imagine, probably quite a big piece of work, which I'll delve into shortly. I was really keen that we had the volunteer voice running through the strategy, because it is a piece of work, as I mentioned, that you can put together with your management and your leadership teams. It's very easy to say this is what we think needs to be prioritized over the next few years and run with that. But our volunteers help us to deliver so much of what we do, and many of them have lots of ideas, lots of lived experience. They often know as much about our collection and our work, or more so, than some of our staff. So it was really, really important, I think, that we started from a place that was understanding our volunteer needs around the next few years. So that was something that we took as a baseline around this. And we wanted this strategy to be clear, to be realistic, achievable and measurable. It needed to be able to be something that, as I say, we can bring to life, and that we can make sure is embedded across our kind of strategic thinking, our forward planning, and is something that we can communicate outwardly as well. And on platforms like this with Vision for Volunteering, and tell the world it's something that we're doing, and it's something that we're proud of. Additionally, this strategy needed to not be stuck on a pedestal on its own. It needs to be embedded within our museum strategy and wider strategic thinking as well. So that was something that we made sure was built into this piece of work too, and that we captured our funding commitments and what kind of future commitments we knew we would have coming down the line as well, that perhaps weren't there at the time of writing, but that were going to be confirmed or expected to come in. So there was a lot to make sure that we captured as part of this, so that the strategy stays relevant. Essentially, it's an umbrella across the whole of your work, and it should be reflecting all areas of volunteering. Next slide, please. So here's a timeline for you, just to give you a flavour of what was involved. So we ran this from late summer in 2022 right through to July of 2023. So it's roughly a 1-year period. We brought in an external consultant, as I mentioned, Laura Hamilton, who's done a lot of work with the voluntary sector and particularly with the heritage sector as well. So I was very keen that we brought in that type of context as part of our work, so that we were picking up on trends and activities and latest thinking, and that we weren't so insular in our way of working. And Laura was fantastic for bringing that type of context into the strategic work. So the first phase that we ran through was a desk-based review, which was myself working really closely with the consultant on understanding the current climate in volunteering at the museum, post-COVID, the work that we'd done before, what systems and processes that we had in place. And I think crucially, really understanding what position we were in at that time and what we saw as the priorities going forward as well. Being in the position I am, I was able to guide and advise around some of that, and use that as our kind of start point, essentially, for then moving in to that consultation phase. So we ran a series of workshops as well with our staff and our volunteers, so that we could understand current thinking, experiences, and what people saw as priorities going forward. So that was a really, really beneficial kind of phase that we had. We did a bit of reflective work after that through a findings report, which helped us then to identify the different themes that were coming out through the workshops, and setting our goals, objectives, and activities on a year-to-year kind of basis. So I'll delve into a little bit more of that through this presentation. Next slide, please. So as part of our consultation phase, we ran 2 workshops with our volunteers, which we did those first, followed by our workshops with staff who manage our volunteer teams. And then finally, we did a senior leadership workshop as well, followed by some interviews for essentially those that weren't able to be involved in the workshops, but were key people, kind of key stakeholders that we needed to engage with to make sure that their perspectives were captured in this as well. With the volunteer workshops, I was keen that we started at that point because it was a very reflective time back then. It seems a long time ago now, 2022, but it in some ways it goes in the blink of an eye with the pace of the work that's always going on. So I was very keen that we provided access to as many volunteers as we could through the workshops, and that we had a really healthy cross section as well of experiences, of demographics, volunteers who were that are sorry, memory blank. Volunteers that have been with us a long time, volunteers who are new. We have student volunteers, people who are working age, people who are retired. We have disabled volunteers, volunteers who are neurodivergent, such as autism spectrum disorder. We involve parents and carers of those who support volunteers as well. So we were really keen that we kind of really worked across that kind of community of people that help to that volunteer and help to facilitate volunteering in those kind of in those different circumstances. So we ran an in-person workshop and we ran one online as well, and we made sure that they were tailored in a way that would suit different kind of audiences as well. So our online one we did on an evening session, so that we could make sure that we could capture people that were finishing work. So I think we ran that at something like 8 o'clock in the evening. And it was incredibly popular, much more than the in-person actually. So the 2 images you see on the screen there are from the in-person workshop with our volunteers, and I'll delve into a bit of the detail on that workshop on the next slide. But I was really keen that with these workshops that we worked quite iteratively and that we allowed one workshop to inform another, because I was really mindful that working with these different audience groups, we could quite easily have like 4 different directions that we head off in, 4 different strands. And given that our volunteers were the kind of biggest base of people that the largest base of people that we were working with, that we took their perspectives and we allowed that then to inform the next workshop. So every workshop was then crafted individually on the basis of what we found out, what we discovered, and what we wanted to take forward as themes and priority areas and some of the kind of key outcomes that came from those workshops. So one led to the next and led to the next, and it allowed us then to make sure that once we got to our senior leadership workshop, we were still talking about what our volunteers were, wanting to see, wanting to experience, and what investments they saw as being important going forward. So that was really really nice to be able to see that. But having that kind of bespoke approach obviously meant that I was working very, very closely with the consultant through every kind of step of the way to be able to kind of mold that as it was needed along that way. And this consultation phase ran over roughly, I think, about a 3-month period. So we got all these workshops done in a kind of block like that. Next slide, please. So as part of our workshops, we wanted to, with the volunteers, we wanted to understand kind of current context, what had changed for volunteers in their experience, particularly with COVID. Several different challenges like remote working became a big thing, flexible working, staff visibility challenges, volunteer roles had changed, responsibilities had changed. All those kind of things was stuff that came out as part of our workshops that we were very aware of to some degree, but I think were important for us to reflect on. We also carried out a SWOT analysis with volunteers. So that's looking at our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats as part of the volunteer experience. So that was really valuable, really insightful. And we currently have a strategic people plan. So we looked at the principles around that and how well volunteers felt they reflected on their experience. So there's the slide on the screen there kind of shows you one sample of that in terms of those who scored against those different areas. So there's an interesting kind of shift there across the slide. Next slide, please. So as I say, we had a wide cross section. We needed to make sure that they work with the workshops themselves, that the tools reflected across them. So with the in-person, obviously we're running that in a room, so we were able to use flip charts, magnetic walls, post-it notes, presentation slides, projectors, etc., all that kind of stuff. We needed to have like mirrored versions of that, so when we ran it online. So obviously things like breakout rooms were quite important to have more kind of private discussions, and we used Jamboards and chat functions and various different things as well, which kind of translated well. But we had to make sure that we molded that so that we weren't kind of biasing our approach based on the different formats that we had. I have a couple of quotes on the screen there for you, which are we received a lot of that kind of feedback as part of these workshops, and we wanted honesty, we wanted openness from people, and we wanted to share with people kind of what was working well for them and what wasn't working so well for them and why. So that was really informative. Next slide, please. So our staff workshop. So apologies for the overlap on the screen there. I've just realized also that as I'm not able to manually shift these slides myself, I had set them up so that some of the slides would be phased in terms of the text, but that's not happened, but that's okay. I can work with that. So as part of the staff workshops, we took forward our findings from the volunteer workshops, and we allowed that to kind of craft that content that we wanted to shape the discussions we're having with our staff who manage volunteers. We interestingly had, I think it was roughly 70% of our staff who manage volunteer teams changed since the pandemic. So that's not for the whole museum, that's just those who are managing volunteer teams. But that was really a significant amount of change and disruption, and people not having understanding of what we were doing before COVID, as well as restructures and other challenges that come operationally as well. So that all of that had a big effect on the volunteer experience, but also on the new staff coming in terms of their support, awareness, understanding of volunteering in their areas as well. So that was quite useful in understanding some of those kind of strengths and weaknesses in terms of people's skills, what people were confident in and what they were not. And a lot of that kind of came to light, which was really insightful for us. Okay, next slide, please. So as part of the findings report, so this was put together by our consultant, and it allowed us really to start to reflect on some of the themes that were coming up, those SWOT analysis that we did, and some of that really key feedback that came out. So the slide on the screen here kind of shares with you some of the key challenges that we had that reflect what was found out in those workshops. So interestingly, the site culture is quite different between, so we've got, whilst we have 3 sites, we only have 2 kind of main sites that our volunteers are typically based at. So that's our museum in Covent Garden and our collections store depot in Acton in Ealing in West London. And there's different volunteering activity happening at different sites. There's different staffing levels. There's different levels of support for volunteers on those sites as well. So all of that kind of influences different situations happening at different sites, different levels of support. So that was a big theme that came out. As I mentioned, that shift to hybrid working, that sense of perhaps presenteeism with less staff being visible when volunteers are on site with their activity as well, was definitely it has been a bit of a challenge for us. I think also something that was a strong factor for us is we have there's a degree of autonomy with our volunteers in that we often have a lot of skilled professionals from who are engineers, architects, mechanics, people with a lot of industry experience, both within the transport industry and in other industries as well, that help us to restore our vehicles and provide guidance and advice on all sorts of areas with our collection. And that's often experience that our staff don't always have, or that don't have the kind of breadth of knowledge or the capacity across lots of areas. So our volunteers really kind of bolster that kind of that knowledge base, and allow us to really develop certain project areas that we work on. So there's an independence that comes with that as well, where and trust that we have to work with our volunteers on that. But there's a lot of give and take with the fact that they are line managed by staff and who makes those final decisions, and having that happy medium of working alongside the volunteers, I'm sure you can imagine, is something that can be a challenge. So that was something that was a really strong theme that came out. Also, another factor was the knowledge transfer that we have between volunteers as well. So our volunteer demographic is largely the sort of majority is male volunteers who are age 60 plus. We have a lot of retired people that volunteer with us. We do have investments in bringing in younger audiences through our recruitment. Through we do work with universities and community groups and various other kind of avenues. So that there is stuff happening, but our kind of core base, and I know many museums at least have that kind of core base of volunteers who are naturally attracted to the collection in the way that they are, is and for us, that what I'm getting to with that is what that means is that we are often have an aging population. So capturing people's knowledge and lived experiences, particularly as the transport network develops with technological advancements and station refurbishment and moving to things like driverless trains on the DLR and various other kind of changes that come. Knowledge gets kind of defined then based on that kind of that point in time. And whilst our collection is very historical, it's also very present because of our links with London Underground and Transport for London as well. So there is a need for us to retain that knowledge within our volunteers, so that volunteers who through ill health or life circumstances, whatever it may be, kind of are no longer able to be as active, that we don't also lose that kind of working knowledge as well. So that's something that we've really looked to build in through the strategy and through some of the work that we're doing. And then finally, just on the last point before we move on, naturally reaching new audience for us is really important. We're really keen to make sure that our volunteers reflect the diversity of London, and we do a huge amount of work already around that, and that's continuing to grow through the strategy work. But we do have challenges with racism, ageism, discrimination, with our volunteers as well and with our staff. So that is something that we're also kind of actively working on, but was certainly identified as part of these workshops. There are other challenges as well, but this is enough, I think, for now. So can we go on to the next slide, please? So on a slightly lighter note, some of our key strengths and opportunities that came out of the workshops as well. So there's lots that we do well, that we're good at, that we're actively engaged with, and that there are also opportunities for us to develop further. So we were very good through the pandemic in being able to adapt our volunteer roles and create opportunities for volunteers to support the museum remotely whilst we were closed or whilst we had limited access on site. So we created a digital marketing volunteer team that helped us with our blogging and our social media platforms, and we involved more volunteers in some of our kind of behind the scenes administration around our collections work, and we looked at avenues to kind of keep people involved, and picked up our comms and things like that. So we had I think we had a retention of about 80% of our volunteers from pre-pandemic. So I'd like to think that we did really well with that, and I think a lot of that was testament to our ability to adapt and make change and prioritize volunteers through that time, so that we didn't it's very easy, I think, to for volunteering for the first thing to go, particularly for us, as not so much of our volunteer activity is site based. If the sites are closed, there's just no access, it stops. But we made some change, and it allowed us to be able to retain so many volunteers and be in the position we're in, I think. So that's been very positive for us. We also actively provide opportunities for disabled volunteers to get involved with us, particularly through a lot of our visitor experience work. And we are actively working to kind of develop that access to opportunity, and provide support around how we facilitate those experiences for people as well. I see there's lots of questions coming in already, which is good. Thank you, Georgia, for handling that. So yeah, there's been a lot of positive work that's been going on, both with volunteers and around some of the work that our staff have been doing with volunteers too. So that's been really, it was good to have that highlighted and acknowledged through this work as well, because I'm sure, as many of you know, volunteers are very happy to share their opinions and critique at any opportunity. So it's nice to know that we're doing some things well also. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So as part of our new strategy, we also put a vision together. We hadn't had one before. I think it was really important for us to think about where we want to be in 5 years' time. So and what we want volunteering to look like, and ultimately, what do we want our priorities to be down the line. So I won't read through all of this on screen. You can see this yourselves. But I think it was really important for us that volunteering becomes more inclusive and more accessible to a broad audience as well. So just by providing opportunities for people, for example, with disabilities, doesn't mean that we're accessible, that we're welcoming, that we're supportive. So there's infrastructure that needs putting in place around that to make sure that people are providing that support, and that the right facilitation is being made as it needs to be, and the right kind of suitability is around the roles as well. And our communication is right. There are so many elements what come with that. And I think there's a lot more that we can do actually in engaging with the different sectors, whether that be third sector, whether that be heritage, other museums. There's a lot of collaborative work that we do on projects, but I don't think there's enough actual advocacy that we do as well. And I'm sure we're not alone there. But yeah, so that's something that we're really keen to champion as well, and that we're able to kind of support our staff and scale them up as well, in being able to recognise some of the good practice that's going on across different teams. Like, you don't have to be a volunteer manager to manage volunteers well, but I think we need to do more around that. So there's lots in this vision, I think, which really helps to encapsulate some of that. Can we go to the next slide, please? So as part of the strategy, we put together essentially 2 goals, which were led from the themes that came out of the consultation of the kind of 2, if you like, umbrellas for the strategy. So we want to improve the volunteer experience for everyone through innovative volunteering and enrichment activities which enhance well-being and employability, and we want to expand our capacity and reach for embedding inclusive practice in volunteering, building new partnerships, and facilitating effective knowledge transfer. So and then from these we have 3 objectives which link to each of these goals. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So for goal 1, we have 3 objectives. So to increase staff capacity and skills in volunteer management, to cultivate creativity and innovation in volunteer roles and activities, and to reimagine volunteer engagement, reward, and recognition. And then from these, we have stemming activities, which if we could go to the next slide, please. So here's an example for you. So as, oh, sorry, oh, I'm ahead of myself. So goal 2, sorry, is, as part of expanding our reach and inclusive practice, we've got to create an inclusive and welcoming culture within our volunteer teams, to reach new audiences and to create opportunities for intergenerational work and knowledge transfer. So these are essentially the big themes that came through all this work, and the kind of flagpoles in the ground that we're leaning back on, through these next 5 years. So could we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so in practice, what this looks like is we have short-term, medium-term, and long-term activities which help us to deliver on these objectives and ultimately the goals. So we've got an example on the screen for you here of what that actually looks like for us. So so in the short term, so that was year 1 of the strategy, which is slightly different to the rest of the years because the strategy was new, and there was the need to continue to have dialogue with staff and volunteers around the strategy, and we wanted to look kind of realistically what we could have as our kind of quick wins, but also what we could practically introduce or change or engage with, without too much further investment needed, because as you can imagine from some of the kind of more medium-term, long-term goals, there may be funding needed, there may be more development work that's needed to be able to like truly deliver on those. So our short-term were crafted more around what we can tangibly do over that next year. So we've been delivering disability awareness training this year for our volunteers, and we do have a new training manager that's been introduced in the last few months, and anti-racism is one of those strands which I'm going to be working quite closely with our training manager on, to develop. And there's some wider EDI work that's happening at the moment as well, where we're looking to introduce some module work that feeds into our volunteer inductions around embedding our understanding of inclusion and equality and diversity practices that we champion at the museum. So there's some wider stuff happening around that, but that's our kind of short term. And then the medium term is the next couple of years, and then the long term is the final 2 years in the strategy. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So this is a bit of a whistle stop of our strategy, but I'm hopeful that it's kind of informative for you in terms of what it contains and the approach that we've taken to doing it so far. As I'm sure you can imagine, there's a lot of other influences around how this exists. So, but in terms of the actual delivery of the strategy and how we measure the impact around it, so we are actively investing in our staff in terms of their capacity and skills. We've introduced new staffing roles to support volunteer activity. There is funded work as well that's providing that extra capacity. And we do have a degree of budget so that we're able to look at working more with external consultants and facilitators and trainers to provide extra training or industry expertise where that's needed as well. But also understanding some more around like soft skills, around leadership, around how to be more compassionate and how to engage with kind of groupthink with volunteers. We have lots of big teams. It's very different working with big teams of volunteers than it is individuals in lots of ways. The different types of complexities that exist across different teams. So we need to look more at some of what those more local challenges are. We are working with our funded partners to really embed this as well, and that's where it's been really beneficial to be able to tie some of that work into this to help us to make sure that our strategies reflective of that funded work as well, and that funded work helps us to deliver on this. We're building in the strategy as part of our annual planning now, which wasn't something we had in place for the last strategy, which sounds absolutely crazy, but that dialogue with senior leadership is really important to make sure that that's done. We're not fully the way there yet. There's more work to do around that even still. But within my team and within my department, the strategy is now front and center in our annual operating plan, and all the work that we do stems off of that as our core team. There's more work for us to do to make sure that that's embedded across other teams as well that involve volunteers, but that's an in progress piece that we've got happening. We do capture a lot of data with our volunteers currently through surveys, through feedback, anecdotes as well. So there's lots of ways for us to look at how we measure the volunteer experience and understand what's working well, what's not working so well. So that's been really kind of positive to be able to channel some of that, but also for us to look at actually what we're missing. So we're looking more at the moment, for example, at our exit experience and how that reflects on volunteer satisfaction as well, and to make sure that that ties in to that work. So there's always more that we can be doing, but there's lots that we are doing currently to make sure that this strategy is something that's integrated and that we're focused on in terms of how we're measuring it. Next slide, please. Thank you. We are also embedding volunteering across our museum strategy. So what was slightly fortuitous was that our volunteering strategy was introduced alongside the museum strategy. So they're in tandem with each other, which is really nice. We had a new museum strategy kind of post-COVID as well. Volunteers are embedded across several of our roadmaps, which are our kind of key themes, our key umbrellas that we're prioritizing over the next few years. So we have the inclusion team, which help us to support our kind of EDI culture and really developing that positive messaging, that positive way of working, and being more inclusive and more reflective and more supportive in so many ways with the different audiences we work with. So that's really been really positive so far. My team are involved across the working groups across these, so we have that kind of volunteer management perspective in there, but also crucially we have volunteers on these groups as well, so that they're able to really represent that kind of voice for themselves also, which sometimes, I mean, there are questions about whether that sort of thing should be done, and we've had a bit of a trial and error with how that can work, but we have learned definitely through this more recent experience that volunteers are bringing a unique perspective that for someone like myself as a member of staff can't come from necessarily in that same way, because my experience as a member of staff is not the same as someone who's a volunteer. And so making sure that their perspectives are embedded in this work as well is really, really important. So that's been really a big step forward for us too. Can I go to the next slide, please? So what have we done so far? So we have, so we're just about at the end of our first year. So 31st of March is our last date of our financial year. So we have had a bit of a, despite what's on the screen, we have had a bit of a gap because I had a lot of recruitment to do around my team last year. So it has meant that the strategy hasn't had as big a focus as I'd like to have made sure it had. So, but that's risk management, that's being operational, that's everything that comes with the day-to-day, really. It's how things go. But we have delivered on a lot already, as you can see on screen. So we've introduced annual planning as part of our strategy work. So we've got one to do for our year 2 soon. That's something we didn't have in our previous strategy, and I definitely recommend that as a way to keep convening with your kind of key stakeholders and influencers in your organization around what is in your strategy and what needs to change and develop and be tweaked and adjusted, and what that next year looks like and how that's being embedded, to make sure that you're still making sure that each year your objectives are still relevant and the activity that you're doing is still embedded within the strategy in the right way. We've introduced some weekly comms across our organisation, which feature volunteering, which previously they didn't. So people didn't know about activity that was happening at different sites, or if they didn't work within those departments, they didn't know about that work and their involvement. So that's been really positive in terms of promoting awareness of volunteering. In my team, we've had a new coordinator brought in specifically for this strategy work, and that was something that that was a kind of key priority as part of the strategy work. That if we want to scale up this work, there's a lot of investment going in, a lot of work, and a lot of collaborative work that we want to be doing with our teams and within the sectors. That we need more staff, we need more resource and more investment. So that's been really positive to have. And I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, that we're going to have some more over the next year to 2 years as well, because that's something that we're building in as part of our scaling up. We've also started to do online socials with our volunteers. That's been really positive, an experience for our volunteers who are um, not able to get on site so regularly, or aren't able to access our events because of site access issues, or just time of day, how well it fits within people's lives. And also, we have a lot of volunteers that don't necessarily live local to where we work, where they volunteer. So home counties and further afield as well. So it's been really beneficial for us to involve those people that are kind of geographically distant in some of our more social opportunities, which I think are just as important for volunteer well-being and support and engagement as them coming in to spend a couple of hours on a piece of work with us. And then additionally, we've very recently recruited a chairperson for a new access advisory group for volunteering, which is going to be a piece of work that's going to be running throughout this year, working with our volunteers and our staff to understand how we can be more inclusive in volunteer recruitment and in supporting volunteers on their journey and in their time with us as well. So we're going to be doing a lot of reflective work in that, and I hope that we'll be able to really make some meaningful change over the next kind of year to 2 years around that. So that's really important work that I'm really excited about, and is only just kicking off. So that's really good. Can I go to the next slide, please? Thank you. I think we do only have like a couple more slides left, just so everybody knows. So we are very close to the end now on the slides. So we do have some challenges with the strategy as well. We're keen to share some of these with you. Whilst there's a lot of bells and whistles and good stuff happening, there are still challenges even now. So having capacity in my team to keep focusing on strategic work and that strategic thinking and what investments need to be going in down the line, and making sure that we're forward planning is a relatively new introduction into my team, being led by myself. And I'm keen that we continue to kind of scale up, but we do need to have capacity because we are very operational in what we do as well. So it is definitely that balancing act that it's very easy and a bit cliche, but it's very easy to have a strategy that is, oh, that was produced during that year, and now we're just focusing on other things now. We're focusing on other priorities. But actually, we need to make sure that their strategy is getting embedded, that it's being developed, and that it stays relevant for us all as well. So that's really important. We do need an impact model for our strategy. Like, we don't have one at the moment, but it's kind of like the bit where this is what we want to do and this is where we want to be, but it's that bit in the middle that we need in terms of like how we get that step along. So we're looking at we do have an evaluation manager, and they have been looking at theory of change. So that may be a model that we look to introduce around volunteering, but it's a bit of a work in progress at this point. As I say, some of the rest of the slides, the bullet points there I've mentioned, but yeah, and I think managing expectations is probably a key one. I've been very vocal about our strategy, and I've been presenting it to our staff and our volunteers over the last few months in particular. And I've been very keen to make sure this strategy has a lot of visibility and people are understanding what our priorities are going to be year on year, and that we can reference back to that where we need to be able to. And so people can, particularly volunteers, excuse me, know that we're listening, know that we're engaged, and know that we have priorities to make investments as well. So that's been really important. But I think the pace of change is definitely something we have to be able to manage, and being able to support new staff coming in and make sure that different departments who I don't manage are also engaged with this work is definitely one of those kind of continual needs that has to just be there, that has to be built in. Next slide, please. And some good news, some top tips for you. So I was keen to share some of what my learning has been around this for you. If you're looking at developing your own strategy and you're thinking about what needs to be involved and how this might relate for you. So I would say it's really important to be realistic with the planning phase for this. It took several months before we got a consultant on board. And obviously putting a bid together and that process for doing that what needed to be built in, and then there's a pace that definitely picks up suddenly once you've got your consultant, because you're looking at their time and what you need from them and that relationship that you have to manage, but also in terms of that kind of process of discovery, really, from understanding what your needs are to doing the workshops and what's involved along that, and then time to produce the strategy and really craft it is really important. And to make sure that your volunteers are involved. Like I do think like that's the I don't think there's an exception to that. Like I don't think you can have a volunteering strategy and not involving volunteers, really, in a meaningful way. I think as well, not just as a token, because it needs to be something that's relevant for them. There's no point in having a strategy that's not effective or that isn't relatable in any way. It's just otherwise it's just a document. I do think you've got to be really open to hearing criticism and all forms of feedback through this process, because it is a learning experience, and you do want honesty with that. You want to know what works well and what isn't working well, and what needs to be done in terms of change, but also capturing ideas, capturing skills, capturing gaps in skills and knowledge. There's a lot of different stuff that can come out of this, and um, we have a whole report that didn't make its way into the strategy as well, around other stuff which didn't really factor in terms of our kind of key themes and priorities, but is other work that came out as well, which is something we're going to look at picking up at some stage. Um, so yeah, and a big thing about this is definitely bringing it to life and making sure that it's communicated, and that there's some advocacy work going into this to really make it effective. I think without that, the strategy is invisible. People won't know about it. New volunteers coming in won't know about it. People won't know about your priorities, and there's so much in terms of that engagement and that influencing that you have to be able to do to make sure that the whole organization is in support of it and that everyone's doing their bit as well. That's really important. So being able to kind of lean on people and provide that kind of support where that's needed is important too. So next slide, please. The end. So thank you all for listening. Some contact details for me on the screen there if anyone does want to get in touch at any point in time. I'm quite happy to share kind of further insight at another point, or I'm not sure if this strategy is going to get shared with everyone afterwards or not. But yeah. So thank you all for listening, and I hope it was useful for you and insightful. I think I've overrun just slightly, but I think we also had a bit of extra time from Georgia finishing her slot earlier, so hopefully it won't be too heavy an impact. So we've got quite a few questions here that's filtered through, so I'll jump straight into those. Georgia, I'm not sure if we're going to have time to go through all of them,
No,
unless we want to forego the breakout, which I'm happy to take a poll on that if that does a preference.
let's run with the questions and we'll see where we get to.
Okay.
I think
right.
a couple of you have already answered.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll have a quick filter through. Was there anything that was suggested that didn't make the strategy, and why?
Yes, as I mentioned sort of towards the end there were a lot of ideas about ways that we could involve volunteers and different kinds of experiences that we could look to provide as well, which were something that didn't necessarily always have the right infrastructure around them. It's not to say that there isn't a place for them down the line, but I think some of the big themes within our strategy are around being more inclusive, making volunteering more accessible, having more leadership and advocacy around volunteer management, and being able to focus on what skills and support our staff need to be better at managing volunteers and better at dealing with challenges and conflict, and for us to be able to develop more of a positive work culture around volunteering, and that kind of keeping that autonomy, but being able to still have positive working relationships between staff and volunteers. So some of the kind of big themes that came through were ultimately our kind of focus areas, because I think they were resonating quite heavily, like through the workshops and across different audience groups. Do
Awesome.
you want me to run through these questions, Georgia, or do you want to call them out and I'll answer? I don't
I
mind
can
either
call
way.
out and you'll answer, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. So how did you decide or select how many and how who could get involved and could everyone share these views?
So we did a call out to volunteers about the strategy, like the fact that we were going to be that we involved the consultant and that we were going to be running some workshops, and that we did have like a kind of headcount limit for them. So we had a lot of back and forth. I had a lot of back and forth with the consultant around how we frame that, because we were really keen that we had a good cross section of people, which meant some degree of targeting. So I think initially we did do a bit of an open call, like early on. So we did get some people, but I think we had enough kind of capacity for us then to kind of target certain audiences as well. So it was a bit of a mixed approach, really. But I think particularly with the online workshop, we made sure that within our messaging that we were focusing more on that audience that is less readily available to be on site as well, so that was geared towards representing that broader pool of people.
Awesome. And how involved were your trustees? Did you see trustees as part of the volunteering strategy?
So we have a volunteering champion on our trustees, on our board, who through this strategy work, I now meet with them kind of on a quarterly basis on volunteering, so that they're kind of up to speed on everything, and that's really helped with um, that kind of visibility of volunteering at the board level. They've now invited me in to do some presentations to them on the kind of progress that we're making and things like that. So that side of it has been really positive. But in terms of the trustee involvement, it was at the later stage. We didn't involve them in the workshops. It was much more when we were at the kind of draft stage for the strategy document itself. So, and they were part of that kind of feedback and approval cycle. So there were 3 or 4 months really where between senior leadership and the trustees, we were reviewing the strategy in terms of making sure that it's framed in the right way. So it was really at that point where they kicked in. But I think that has become, as I say, a springboard to having a dialogue with the trustees around this work and around volunteering more broadly, which I think is really, really healthy. Because before this strategy, there was no relationship with the trustees around volunteering. So that has, I would say, if anything, it's led to greater things since, but they didn't have a big involvement as such at the through the process.
Okay, great. How did you make sure the volunteer voice was representative of your volunteer body and not just the opinions of the same people who always contribute to this kind of work?
Yeah, so kind of links a bit to the earlier question. I think we did take that mixed approach. So we expected there to be certain loud voices that will, or those that are readily available to sign up to absolutely anything, or any opportunity for them to share their kind of grievances, if you like. There's always a few, and that's expected, and to some degree that was welcomed. But I think making sure that there was enough capacity made sure that we weren't oversubscribed, and that we could manage the numbers. And when it came to the days, I don't think we even hit capacity with the number of volunteers that attended, which for various reasons. But that was a bit of a shame. But I don't think kind of being oversubscribed with the wrong audience was kind of a problem. We just had to make sure that we targeted enough in terms of the demographics and the different ways people volunteer, that there was representation there. And part of that, I think, was having kind of that one-to-one dialogue. I was keen to phone people up, make sure that we did hear from certain people and that they were involved. And those that couldn't attend the workshops, which I felt were kind of important people to hear from, we did allow them to kind of write in, and we had some engagement, which we then filtered in as part of the workshop as well, so that their voices weren't lost in that process.
Awesome. Can you share any examples of your starting questions, themes, topics that formed the basis of your consultation process? And did you get different stakeholders to review or input on different aspects of the strategy, or was everyone permitted to input on all areas?
Oh, that's quite a long question. Sorry, I might have to split that into two parts.
That's fine.
So in terms of the kind of themes for the workshops, I think doing the SWOT analysis was really important, and that was a kind of pinch point for us in terms of being able to look at that dialogue around what that experience currently looks like. So that was really important to have. We wanted to reflect on the people plan, as I mentioned. So that was a strategic piece that was already in place. Like, how true is this to volunteers? So there was a lot of kind of conversational dialogue that we generated around those kind of areas. I think it was important, as I say, for us to look ahead. Like, we wanted to understand what people's ideal volunteering experience would be like. So there was a lot of open questions that we put to the groups so that we could hear from people in that kind of way. But we also did some group work as well. We wanted to have more informal conversations as part of the workshops as well, that the people could then note down their points, and that they'd be able to put their kind of comments up on a sort of mood board or on Jamboard or something like that, so that they could share those. Do you mind repeating the second part of the question?
Absolutely. Did you get different stakeholders to review and input on different aspects of the strategy, or was everyone permitted to input on all areas?
Yeah, so we did have to channel this. Yeah, I think if I'd have asked, 400 plus people to input on this, I don't think we would have got anywhere. So I did have to work closely with the consultant. So I was kind of the main kind of leader in terms of kind of driving it forward. But I worked with our head of department, who at the time was my line manager. So there was some visibility of how the workshops were being framed. Um, there was a need for me to report upwards through the progress that was being made as well. So there was wider awareness through the process of how the strategy was being developed. Um, so that was quite useful to be able to do. But in terms of, I didn't share very widely with different stakeholders in terms of the kind of workshop planning as such, because I think it would have prolonged the process and the timeframes that we had for doing the consultation. And the fact that we had such a kind of bespoke approach to each workshop as well. Like, we were kind of starting, once we'd done one, we were like, right, let's look at how we can plan the next one. And to some degree as well, like, I mean, I haven't said, but I have also been at the London Transport Museum for, well, over a decade, and I've really helped to develop and platform volunteering at the museum, and develop a lot of, put in place a lot of the initiatives that we have. So I think there was to some degree, a bit of bias of me leaning on that experience of knowing what we have done, and being able to try to channel that into this work, which I think helped. Because I think without that, I think there probably would have needed to have been the kind of, almost like an extra working group on the side or something like that.
Okay, fab. We've just got two more questions, and then I think we can squeeze in a little bit of breakout. So relating to the point around aging volunteers, do you have alumni volunteers?
We don't actually at the moment, but it is something that our volunteers have been asking about us doing, as part of that kind of, partly as part of the knowledge transfer, because people often can no longer actively volunteer, but they could help in more of an advisory kind of capacity that we could draw on. in some kind of way, but also in terms of people's career progression. Like we have a lot of people that kind of volunteer with us and then they move on to becoming like a tube driver, or they go to university and learn about transport planning, or they just go off and do something completely different that's not transport related, but they um, that having that relationship like beyond them being an active volunteer, I think is something that we need to look at. And at the moment, that's not in our strategy, but it may be that we look to incorporate that over the next couple of years. I think there is a place for that, definitely. But I think we also need to understand what that can look like. So we already have, for example, a patron circle at the London Transport Museum, which is kind of like the people who donate each year towards our work. And there's a kind of membership framework around that to some degree. So I think we need to think about something around that for volunteering, of how we manage that and what that engagement looks like. But yeah, I mean, I'm open for us to um, develop something like that down the line. I think there's a need. So.
Awesome. And then finally, what kind of social events and activities do you do? Please, can I hear more about the volunteer socials?
Okay, so we run a annual thank you event for all our volunteers. So we've got one coming up in May this year. I say it's annual, but we haven't done one since the pandemic. So this will be our first one, which will be the start of an annual one again. So we used to do them before COVID. We get the whole, we get all our departments together. Our senior leadership will be there. It's a kind of a program that we develop in terms of putting on activities, food and drink, and it's an opportunity for us to thank our volunteers, give them some certificates, and have lots of social opportunities, skill sharing, and we do things like transport quizzes and test their engineering knowledge. There's all sorts of kind of STEM work that our learning team do, which we like to sort of tie in something like that, which is really interactive then and really fun. We also do social events through the year, so we tend to run a big kind of Christmas party at Christmas time where all staff and volunteers get together. Like after hours at the museum, so we get to do that whole kind of behind the scenes kind of thing, a bit like a museum late, but for staff and volunteers, which is pretty cool. We also do like a picnic in the park over the summer, which is quite nice, like in central London. We run reciprocal visits as well. So as a museum, and particularly in London, lots of other museums are kind of doing similar things. So there's a kind of like unofficial, like reciprocal visit arrangement that lots of places have, where we can take a group of volunteers to visit another site for free, and they can come to our site for free as well. So we get like behind the scenes tours and things like that. So we tend to run several of those events through the year. Um, and as I mentioned before, we started to do online socials as well. So we have different avenues for that, and sometimes that's built into team working, so skill sharing, that kind of stuff. What are people's favourite objects in our collection? What knowledge can you share that other volunteers might not know? That kind of stuff. So there's different ways to pitch these events, and there's a different place for them. But we also have very local stuff like tea and cake and that kind of stuff just on site as part of their normal days. If it's like end of the year or to someone's birthday or whatever that needs to be as well. We do have a budget for social events as well, which is quite nice to have. It doesn't stretch massively, but it does allow us to put on several kind of paid events for volunteers as well, which is really nice to be able to have, especially those kind of bigger thank you events, and be able to have a budget for those.
Amazing. That all sounds really great. So I think we might just have run out of time for the breakouts. I don't know if you wanted to just walk us through what you were going to ask people to talk about, and maybe people can go away and think.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you for putting the slide on. What challenges would you face in introducing a volunteering strategy at your organisation, and what steps could you take to address them? So I'm sure everyone's in a different place when it comes to whether they have a strategy, how that's working currently, or actually if you don't have one, but you might be looking to have one, like what might be some of those kind of initial steps that you might need to be considering around how you take that forward. And because everyone's in different places, I'm sure that other people would be able to share their different experiences of that as well and give some insight. I mean, the way I've developed our strategy is based on what our needs have been. But other charities, other organisations will have different kind of systems, different ways of collaborating, different scale as well. So all of those things will, of course, will be a factor. So.
Fabulous. We do have some networking time towards the end of the session, and I have specified which breakout rooms are for which conversations. And I think maybe if we make one of those rooms this question, and then anybody that does want to sort of participate in that breakout will have a chance to do so later on. If everyone's happy with that. Fabulous. Okay, then I think it is my turn to take over again. So if I could just have my slides back, please. Thank you very much. So a huge thank you to Sam. That was really, really fascinating. I know we ran over a little bit, but I think we couldn't have done without any of that information. I thought it was all really, really interesting. So we are going to take a little bit of a comfort break now. So feel free to stretch your legs, grab a cup of tea, do whatever you need to do, get your eyes away from the screen for a little while. And we will come back here at 11:45. To introduce Lisa Andrews from CVS Tendring, who's going to talk about collaborative volunteering in practice. So I hope you really enjoyed Sam's talk. I know I definitely did. And we'll see you guys in about 15 minutes. Hi, welcome back everyone. I hope you've had a good chance to stretch your legs and stretch your eyes and grab a cup of tea and are feeling refreshed, ready for our second session. I hope you really enjoyed the first half of the talks. I've got a lot out of them already. So I'm really, really pleased now to hand over to Lisa Andrews from CVS Tendring, who's going to be giving some case studies and some examples of collaborative volunteering in practice. So welcome, Lisa, and over to you.
Hi, thanks everyone. I hope everybody can see and hear me okay, because all I can see is my presentation, but I'm sure it'll all be fine and run swimmingly. My name is Lisa Andrews and I am the Deputy Chief Officer at Community Voluntary Services Tendring, or CVST. We are the local infrastructure organisation for the voluntary sector in Tendring in Essex, and last year we celebrated our 50th anniversary. For anyone not familiar with this part of the world, we're based in the east of England, where our district has the longest coastline in England and includes the seaside towns of Clacton-on-Sea, Brinton-on-Sea, Moulton-on-the-Naze, and the international port of Harwich. But if that still doesn't ring any bells, then we're 60 miles north of London and we share a border with the city of Colchester. But I'm here today to talk to you about collaborative volunteering in practice, and in particular how CVST has worked with a range of partners to integrate volunteering into community projects. Hopefully you'll find some practical examples of how we've made this work in Tendring. Before I talk about that, it's probably useful to give you a bit of background about the area, the type of people who live here, and some of the challenges we face, despite living, as you can see, in an area that has stunning beaches, the largest pleasure pier in England, ancient woodland, a historical abbey that has origins tracing back to the 12th century, and an international port that received its royal charter from King Edward II in 1318. And is said to be from where the Mayflower set off to North America. But depending on who you talk to, that's not always what people talk about when they mention Tendring. They quite often talk about high levels of deprivation, including in Jaywick, the #1 most deprived ward in England, on the outskirts of Clapton. If you work in the health and care system, which we do at CVST, you will also hear about the fact that almost 1 in 3 people are over the age of 65. That's the 5th highest in England. And over 1/3 of the population, age 16 plus, leave school with no qualifications, which is compared to the national average of around 1 in 5, plus many other statistics that put our district in the bottom 20% of the indices of the multiple deprivation. And that might make you think that it would be really difficult to get people to volunteer, but there is always one more way of looking at things. And this next picture gives some examples of that. So whilst the previous image gave you an example of what Jaywick looks like in the media, and in some cases how the system views the place and its people, this is what it looks like to the local community, to the voluntary sector, and to people who care. And the mural on the side of the beach bar in the top left-hand picture was painted as part of a community project brought together by a group of like-minded people who wanted to make a difference in their local community. And as you can see, they did. Scores of kind-hearted, motivated community volunteers who care about where they live help to keep the streets and beaches clean. Thousands of volunteers work together to tackle loneliness and isolation, keep people fit and active, provide befriending services, keep people safe, drive community transport buses, help their neighbours, teach people new skills, feed people, and save lives by running clubs, groups and activities, supporting around 900 voluntary and community groups across the Tendring district. Everything from neighbourhood watch to dementia cafes, sports coaches, digital champions, community first responders and food bank volunteers, to name but a few. And the role of CVST is to bring those organisations together to ensure that they have a voice, to raise their profile, to provide practical support and development opportunities, and to champion volunteering. And I really hope that many of you have CVSs in your areas that do that too. So how does this fit with the vision for volunteering, and in particular with the theme of collaboration, where, as the vision states, collaboration is natural, fluid, flexible and spontaneous? I'm sure that many of you will agree it also takes hard work, resilience, tenacity and a significant amount of goodwill. And we've obviously got tons of that in the voluntary sector. The vision also talks about people doing great stuff together because they want to, driven by their shared interests or ambitions. And that's some of what I'll be covering during this session. I would like to make it clear, though, that the great stuff we do together is only possible when that great stuff is properly resourced, particularly when trying to do it at scale. And in the case of CVST, some of that resource came in part from the National Lottery, and it started in 2013 with funding for our Hill project, Healthier, Independent, Longer Lives. It was a community development project that's been running now for over 10 years, and it aims to tackle loneliness and isolation, high levels of physical activity, low skills, and to get people more involved in their local community. And it's no accident that all of these photographs show people enjoying themselves outdoors, in part because they obviously make great photos, I think, but also because being outdoors and enjoying nature is proven to benefit people's health and well-being. And I've actually seen that on the news this morning. But a significant amount of research has been carried out in this area. And that research has repeatedly shown that contact with nature has many beneficial effects, including improved mood, happiness, subjective well-being, sleep, reduced stress, and a reduction in feelings of depression and anxiety, with some of these being closely linked to improvements in people's physical health and their susceptibility to disease as well. We do have an equal number of indoor activities too at CVST, ranging from friendship clubs to art groups, helping people to use technology, multicultural groups, exercise and relaxation classes, and loads more. But none of it would be possible without volunteers. And CVST has around 250 of them, amazing people from all walks of life. And going back to that vision for volunteering, where collaboration is natural, fluid, flexible, and spontaneous, we've had to make sure that we are all of those things and more to ensure that our volunteering offer meets the needs of our local population and our funders and our partners. And we've had to do that so that people want to volunteer with us, so that stakeholders refer their beneficiaries to us, so that they can volunteer. People with learning disabilities and mental ill health, people who've been bereaved or have suffered trauma, people with physical disabilities, or who are furthest from employment. And so that people are talking about us on social media. And when someone asks the question, does anyone know where I could go to do some volunteering? We want people to be coming back with, have you tried CVST? They're great. And I'm really pleased to say that they do. This, of course, has to be backed up by well thought out systems, policies and procedures, risk assessments, excellent governance, robust financial procedures, and a passionate and dedicated team of great people. In our case, this includes a wonderful volunteer coordinator, and I can't stress enough how great volunteer coordinators can be, but also a team of brilliant community development officers, thanks again to the National Lottery funded project. They've embedded high quality volunteer management systems into our organisation so that recruitment, induction, training and volunteer development is seamless, and so that our volunteers have opportunities to do what they're passionate about and that they feel valued and respected. Again, I cannot stress enough how important it is to say thank you. And at CVST, we do this all year round, not just during Volunteers Week, although these photos are from Volunteers Week, at our volunteer fun days, at our beach huts, which we're obviously lucky being on the coast to have access to that. And they are legendary. Great, great way to say thank you to your volunteers. Just as a slight aside, I will add that CVST, as part of our infrastructure offer, operates as the local volunteer centre, for which we use the Volunteer Essex platform to match people to volunteering opportunities with around 100 volunteer involving organisations across our district. And then another essential process that needs to be embedded in any volunteering programme is, of course, monitoring and evaluation. You have to be able to tell your funders and potential future funders about the outputs and outcomes that have been achieved through the work that you do. There are the obvious basics around the number of volunteers, the number of hours, number of beneficiaries they support. And if you have the resource to be able to turn that into a social return on investment, then even better. But if you don't, then a basic calculation of the hours of volunteering times minimum wage or average wage, as you can see on the screen here, will give you and your stakeholders at least an idea of how much it would cost your organisation to deliver your services if you had to employ staff for those hours. And for your outcomes, this could include a whole range depending on your organisation, the types of people who volunteer with you, or the people that you work with. Self-reported outcomes through questionnaires or other tools that measure well-being or confidence, increases in people's levels of physical activity or skills gained, or achievement of qualifications, and the difference that has made, such as people gaining employment as a result. And the way you report on those outcomes should also be varied, including graphs, stories, case studies and films, as well as your funders' standard reporting mechanisms. Another tip that I picked up from a conference I attended some years ago is to share some of these stories with your funders outside of your usual reporting process, particularly if you have a grants officer. An email with a good news story or a news article, or even just a quote from a beneficiary, can go a long way to helping your funders remember you and the brilliant work you do. And don't forget social media. Mention, tag or link to funders, partners and stakeholders, and encourage them to like and share your posts. I want to share with you now a jewel in the crown for CVST, which is the Kennedy Way Community Garden. This touches on the second part of the collaborative aims within the vision for volunteering around shared interest or ambitions. And this particular project came about as a result of exactly that. It started with an NHS Local Estates Forum meeting, a monthly meeting that our chief officer attended to discuss, you've guessed it, local estates. And by that, I mean buildings and offices, GP surgeries, car parks, hospitals, and some voluntary sector estates like community centres and hospitals, and the issues surrounding those things. As I'm sure you can imagine, for a voluntary organisation used to working with the local community and amazing charities, it wasn't the most exciting 2 hours each month, but it's worth thinking about the fact that everything happens for a reason and the time invested paid off. One of the estate's issues being discussed for a number of years was the decline of 2 GP surgery buildings that were not fit for purpose. They were overcrowded and they needed significant investment. The local NHS had been pushing for some time to merge the 2 surgeries, despite significant public outcry against this. And the NHS wanted to refurbish another site that they already owned at a location about a mile from each surgery, but centrally located for the local population, to create a brand new purpose-built super surgery to properly meet the needs of the local population. After many, many years, and we weren't going to the meetings for 18 years, but that's how long it took, the project got the go-ahead, and with all sorts of reassurances to local residents, including things like improved transport links, which were in part provided by another great local charity, Tendring Community Transport, supported and encouraged by the infrastructure role of CVST. What followed were many, many meetings, discussions, business cases, plans and ideas to bring that project to fruition. And this included discussions around what was going to happen to an overgrown, rubbish-strewn piece of wasteland in the middle of the rather large surgery car park that you can see here. And this was around the time that the NHS was starting to see the value of social prescribing. And CVST was delivering the social prescribing service in our area. So at one of the many meetings, our chief officer suggested to NHS colleagues that this piece of wasteland could make a great community project that could link social prescribing, community development, volunteering and well-being. We were able to she was able to convince everyone around the table that this project would make a difference, not only to the new surgery's patients, but also to the wider community. And after many more meetings, emails, discussions and conversations with what was the clinical commissioning group at the time, plus NHS property services, GPs, senior managers from the surgeries affected and others, a decision was finally made to go ahead with Kennedy Way Community Garden. More meetings and emails with NHS Property Services took place. They owned the land, they owned the space. And that was followed by legal agreements about site management. And as time went on, these conversations developed. And as that happened, a real appetite from estate managers and project managers for this exciting new project began to form. So much so that they eventually agreed to include some funding in their business case for this multi-million-pound doctor surgery to pay to clear the land and for the development of the outdoor space. At the same time as those discussions were taking place with the NHS, CVST was doing what it does best, engaging with the local community, getting the buy-in from the patient participation groups, local residents, potential volunteers, and Holland Residents Association. We worked with them, and you can see the picture on the right. We worked with them to co-produce and co-design the community garden, and they eventually settled on a plan that included a polytunnel with storage sheds, raised beds, and a men's shed. And our team worked tirelessly to ensure that the community was involved in the project every step of the way. And it's a testament to everyone involved that the community are still involved in this project. Many of the volunteers who joined the project while it was still just a patch of wasteland are still involved in it now, 2.5 years later. Months of work followed and a beautiful, vibrant community garden grew, which I can show you around now.
Hi and welcome to the Kennedy Way Community Garden. We have had our grand opening today, so the community garden is open to the public. And what we're going to do, we're going to just show you around, show you a few of the things here and let you know what we're going to be doing here in the garden over the coming months and hopefully years. And we've got a fabulous group of volunteers, a social prescribing link worker, a volunteer coordinator, who've helped make this happen. We've got some fabulous raised beds where our local community are able to plant fruit and veg and flowers, grow things, and just improve their health and well-being. We know how great the value of being outside is and the difference that it can make to people's health and well-being. So we've created this fabulous space that allows people to get outside, be active, make new friends and join their local community. So here we've got our brand new polytunnel, which is where we're going to be able to do seedlings and plant things and grow things. And obviously when the weather isn't too great, we're going to be able to be inside in the warm and the dry. So we've got some lovely seating areas here where people can come. The staff can obviously from the Kennedy Way Medical Centre can enjoy their lunch here or sit out here, but also the community can come, have a natter with their friends after they've done a bit of planting, have a cup of tea, just a place to sit and enjoy the outside. Here we are outside our men's shed. It's a little bit noisy, there's all sorts of activity going on in here. And if you come inside, I'll show you around, let you know what we're going to be doing inside. So this is the men's shed. You can see we've got some lovely little bird boxes here that have been made. We're going to decorate them and pop them up on the trees out in the garden. And this is a space where men can actually work side by side and build things, make things, create things, teach other men how to make things and create things, and it's just a really great place to be. If you come up to the other end, you'll be able to see it's got electricity and it's got a microwave and a sink unit, so people can also have a cup of tea here. We've got one of our volunteers here also who hopefully doesn't mind being on film and just closing it up for the night because we're all done for the day, but it's a really great space that people can enjoy throughout the year in the dry, in the warm, and make new friends, get to know each other and try something new.
Hi, Lisa. Apologies to interrupt. Just you got your microphone on mute there.
Right, sorry about that. Working some technology is a bit of a downfall there for me, but I'm hoping that we're back up and running. So great. Hopefully you can see and hear now. Sorry about that. So just I'll repeat what I was saying. That film was made on the day of the official launch in October 2021, and since then, because of that great work and the time and the energy and the effort and literally, I mean literally in its truest sense, the blood, sweat and tears of dozens of volunteers, the NHS and NHS Property Services in particular have continued to support the project. They've been able to highlight it on the national stage at conferences and workshops as an exemplar of best practice for managing NHS estates. And they've been able to share stories around the country about how a collaboration between the NHS and the voluntary sector has truly integrated social prescribing into the care provided by medical professionals to improve the physical and mental well-being of the local population. And as a result, further investment has been received from the NHS to develop the facilities even more, to include a community hub, which is powered by solar panels, an upcycling space, an outdoor gym, a sensory garden, beautiful wildflower garden you can see there from last summer, some other planting, and audiovisual facilities to enable even more activities to take place in this really, really magical space. And this has led to numerous other collaborations with other organisations. So that includes Essex Wellbeing Service, the provider of wellbeing services in Essex, small local business, CVST's own wonderful volunteers, a county-wide training provider, and many others, all of whom deliver a plethora of clubs and groups or who just enjoy using the garden. And that in turn has helped to raise CVST's profile, enabling us to collaborate further on other projects across our community with public and private sector partners, and of course our outstanding local charities and voluntary and community groups. So I hope that everyone has found this interesting and that it's given you some food for thought, because we now have an opportunity to move into breakout rooms for a discussion about collaboration and volunteering. And afterwards we can share some feedback. So there's 4 rooms that you're able to join, pick one that you fancy, and we'll have a chat. Up on the screen, there are some suggested discussion topics. So feel free to use them or to pick something else. And afterwards, we'll feedback maybe 3 top tips from each group. So have a chat, join a group, and we'll come back in a few minutes. There's some lessons learned after the breakout room. So hopefully we'll enjoy speaking to each other. I think we've got 15 minutes for this. So lovely. Hi, sorry, I just saw a thing saying that I'm live again. So nice to see everybody back here. I hope that you had some useful discussions in your rooms. I managed to get into some of them, and then unfortunately I got thrown out of the room that I was in presenting and had to move somewhere else, but it's much better lighting and a much better view, so that's good. What I will do is just take some of the comments that I picked up in some of the rooms that I was in, and then also, and I'm hoping that Georgia might be able to pop some things in the chat on this screen, some feedback from some of you and some of the top tips that you picked up. I mean, there were suggested questions, and hopefully you've come up with some top tips that we can share with one another, or hopefully picked up something from a colleague in the room that we don't all get to hear. But one of the things that I picked up was about the importance of buy-in. So buy-in from senior leaders within your organisation, and to really make sure that if you are talking about volunteering within your organisation, that everybody in your organisation believes in it and is passionate about it. And that's not just the senior management team, but also the board. So just to really make sure that volunteers within your organisation feel that thing that I was saying earlier, feel valued and feel as though it's something that's important to your whole organisation, because the expectations on volunteers are growing and growing. There's more and more expectation that volunteers can do different things, and that puts pressure on people. And if the people in your organisation aren't getting that message from the top that volunteering is as important as everything else within your organisation, it can get missed. One of the other comments picked up in one of the rooms that I was in was about building relationships. So again, if you are a volunteer involving organisation, and if you are placing volunteers, or you're required to recruit and induct and train volunteers, you really need to make sure that all of the organisations that you work with have that you've built a good relationship with them. You can't go in like a bull in a china shop and say that you want people to volunteer, but then you don't provide any sort of support to those organisations or the support to your volunteers. And that's absolutely essential. There are a couple of questions that have come through, so I'm going to look at those now. And one of those says, does the Kennedy Way Garden have any paid staff to coordinate the volunteers? So yes, I have to say it was an add-on project, and we had the team, so our community development team, some social prescribers who their role was to sort of manage it on days that they could, and we had this rota, and it was quite a struggle. We decided as an organisation to sort of bite the bullet and just use a little bit of funding to actually put someone in part-time, and that's made a massive difference. So having a paid member of staff, we've looked at other models, and particularly I think the difficulty for us is around the men's shed. And we've looked at other models where they are completely volunteer run and they run fine, but with the entire community garden and another organisation in there delivering training and the community hub space, it really needs that regular presence. But what we've tried to do is to still make sure that sort of rota that was following and having people there on a regular basis and getting that buy-in from lots of people in the organisation, not just making it one person's responsibility. That's made a bit of a difference. Another question on here is, do you have any tips for getting people to participate in impact reporting? I've found in other roles that people often view reporting or sharing stories as the responsibility of someone else in the core staff team or a lead individual, and not them. Again, it's such a common problem that I think we find in the voluntary sector. One of the things that we did is we had we were really lucky to get some funding for a PR officer. It's not anything that we'd ever had before. And we made it very clear from day one that she would take the stories and turn them into something, but all of the staff still had to give her the stories. It's not her responsibility to go out and find them. We have to be going to her, and she's very visible in the organisation, and she goes out and about, and she meets people. She does a brilliant staff newsletter, and which includes all of those stories, so that some of them can be made into films. And I would actually really strongly encourage anyone who hasn't already gone and had a look at looked us up, but we've got a YouTube channel that's got some of those stories on brilliant stories about people whose lives have been changed because of the project. And I think that films are a brilliant way to do that. So another person has put on here, just out of interest, what do the volunteers in the age range of 12 to 17 get involved with? It was really interesting because when I was looking for the slides and for some monitoring examples, I picked a pie chart and I thought, oh, I wonder if someone's going to ask about that, because I literally just got an image of a pie chart that had an age profile to give an example of what a pie chart might look like with an age profile. And actually, we don't have volunteers from the age of 12. We do have a youth volunteering project, but it's for young people between 16 and 18. So unfortunately, that pie chart was just something that I'd got off the internet, and not a real one of CVST's. But we have a separate youth volunteering project for young people. My recommendation, completely different hat on, for young people who are interested in getting involved in volunteering, is really, I think there's some fantastic uniformed organisations. I'm involved personally, a personal level, with a Scout organisation. I think if you've got young people in your community and trying to connect them, Scouts is a really, really great way of doing that. But that's just me. So I think there may have been a few people who were late getting here, and I did have one more piece of information to just share with everybody broadly, but do still please feel free to pop any information, any questions into the chat in your room, and they're getting fed back to me, and I can obviously answer any questions. But I will just share, just as a sample from me, what I think that our top tips are. So just a selection of lessons learned, things that we have found to be particularly useful in our experience of the time that we've been doing this sort of work, say the 10 plus years that we've been doing the Hill project, but the 50 years, I guess, that CVST has been about. And I think the first of those is for just suggesting to people that we are patient. Engagement doesn't happen overnight. It takes a really long time to build trust. This project that we've got at Kennedy Way, that's been 2.5 years, we're still finding that people are, you know, they've got their odd niggles, and people are people, aren't they? They're going to find it difficult to engage in the way that you like everyone to be able to. So I think that's definitely a useful lesson, is be patient. I think, as I've said a couple of times, I think throughout this, is keep telling your story, particularly to partners, particularly to funders. Keep telling your story, all the brilliant things that volunteers do. If we really want to get volunteering embedded in our community. There's a program at the moment, I don't know who's involved with I think it's called Volunteering for Health, and it's a national program where it's being suggested that some of these programs might be led by your local NHS charities organisation, which is generally coming out of a local hospital. And it's really important to make sure that you're telling your story to those organisations as well, and that you're working with them. And you might have to do a lot of research to go out and find them and find out who else is doing this sort of work. But do just keep telling the story. Go to your local paper, get them to publish great stories about great volunteers. And let those people tell their own stories too. So I just mentioned about our YouTube channel, but if you look on there, you can see there are some people. Obviously, not everyone wants to do this, but every now and again you find someone. And I'd highly recommend that people watch This Is Shirley, because she is just an unbelievable star who didn't even go out of her front door when we first met her. She had every ounce of her hadn't wanted to even leave her home. She managed to make it into the community centre to participate in activities. She developed into a brilliant volunteer who can't believe that she did the things that she did. And a new film, Shirley 2.0, is coming out, where she's actually got a job with our organisation. So make sure you get those stories out there to everybody. think the other thing for me, from a lessons learned point of view, is to really start with a common interest. So the community garden is one that's been absolutely fantastic. People love gardening, people love DIY, people love cups of tea, and getting people involved in something where there's a passion or a common interest has made a massive difference. And because it's such a great space and there's so many different things that you can do there, we've been able to encourage people who are interested in photography or art or painting or whatever. But the same applies with our projects, you know, all around the district. If you can give people the opportunity to do something that they love, it's going to make a massive difference to their volunteering and your organisation. The other thing, we've been really lucky, obviously, because we've had a lottery project, got some great staff. We've been, you know, banging on about this for a very long time, and it's given us the opportunity to create lots of different volunteer opportunities. And when you've got lots of different volunteer opportunities and someone comes to you and they say, I don't really know what I want to do, then you've obviously got that opportunity to really explore that with them and make sure that they're in the right place. And we have volunteers who volunteer one day a year at our Christmas market that they absolutely love, or they volunteer 4 hours a week on reception in a community centre. So it's really making sure that there's some sort of flexibility. Think as well about, you know, I mentioned at the beginning about being patient, but you really, really need to think about the time that this takes. So you have to give before you can expect anything back. I mean, sometimes people just come in, hit the ground running, they're absolutely amazing. We had a volunteer who'd been with us for a week, and she said, oh, by the way, I used to work for a safeguarding I was a safeguarding officer in a local council. Do you think you need any training? Literally a week, and she started delivering our safeguarding training to our volunteers. But mostly these things can take weeks, months, or even years, and you have to give your time and your energy, your support, to respect and patience. And one of the things that we always find is extremely valuable is food. Tea and biscuits go a long way. And then my last lesson learned tip really is about remaining consistent. So if you have rules and regulations and policies and procedures, then really make sure that you follow them. So I've just had a message saying it's more or less time to start wrapping up. I think I've answered all the questions, unless there's some in the other room. I don't know if anyone else has, because I'm only in one of the rooms at the moment, but if there are any others. Oh, one new one above. Sorry, let me just see what that one is. Are you doing any work to diversify your volunteer base? What a brilliant question. And thank you so much for asking it, because it really gives me an opportunity to talk about that. We were fortunate to be working with our local NHS on exactly a massive problem for us in Tendring, is the fact that the population of Tendring is something like 96.4% white British. So in terms of diversity of ethnicity, we were very, very light on that. We got some funding to be able to deliver some projects with other voluntary organisations that tackle diversity and work with people from different ethnicities, and it's made a massive difference. So as part of it, we jointly supported an Afro-Caribbean drop-in once a week, and from that we have gained volunteers who now volunteer with our organisation. We've always had a very good cover of providing volunteer opportunities for people with learning disabilities, people with mental ill health, to sort of create some of that diversity. We have a fairly good mix between male and female, probably nowhere near 50-50, obviously significantly more women than men, but I hope that we have gone some way down to making sure that our volunteer base is more diverse, bearing in mind the statistics for our local community. So I hope that answers the question. Anything else? Georgia, did you have anything to add?
I'm just double checking there's no more questions, but I think that's everything. But thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us today. That was really fascinating, a really great session. Thank you so much. If I could just have my slides back now, Alistair. Thank you. So thank you so much again, Lisa, and thank you guys all for being here today and for joining in with the breakout discussions and for listening to our amazing speakers. We do just have a little bit of time now for some networking. So back into those breakout rooms for 15 minutes. So we'll come back at 12:55, so 14 minutes technically. We'll come back at 12:55 just to close out. But I've separated some talking topics into the different breakout rooms. So if you've got a project that you're currently working on and you'd like a little bit of feedback on it, or you'd like to give some feedback on some work, head into breakout 1 or 2. If you'd like to talk about the volunteering strategy that Sam was talking about earlier and has some discussions on what the barriers to creating a volunteering strategy might be and get a little bit of feedback on that and chat about that, head into breakout 3. If you are looking to collaborate on a project and you think there might be somebody in here that you could collaborate with, or you want to make some connections, then head into breakout 4. Or if you just want to have a cup of tea and a biscuit and talk about life and volunteering and the sector in general, head into breakout 5 for some general chat. So click on whichever one of those seems most appealing to you. If you want feedback, then 1 or 2, or just a smaller group in the feedback rooms would be better so that everybody gets a chance to talk. But yes, so we will see you in about 14 minutes at 12:55. So make sure you head back into the main room at 12:55 and we will see you then. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope you got some really good stuff out of your networking space and your breakout rooms. Maybe you've made some great contacts and you can continue the conversations offline. All that's left for me to say is a massive, massive thank you to you for coming along today, and to just give you some final takeaways about the vision for volunteering. If you feel really passionately about the vision, you want to get more involved, we do have a toolkit that will enable you to present the vision for volunteering to your colleagues and your communities and your volunteers, and talk to them a bit more about what the vision is trying to do and how we can all work together to build that movement and to change volunteering by 2032. You can also sign up as a vision champion. So there's plenty of opportunities for vision champions to get involved and help build the movement. You can pick and choose what feels right for you. It's sort of not a mandated time commitment. You can spend 5 minutes or you can spend your whole week. It's completely up to you. These opportunities include, but not limited to, championing our themes within your spaces, organizations, communities, groups, etc. You can encourage your spaces to commit to vision pledges and hold them accountable to those pledges. You'll be mindful of the vision themes in your work and your volunteering, attend events on our behalf, speak at events on our behalf, share the vision themes and aims with your colleagues and community, hold the vision accountable in being an example to others in the sector. So it's really is a two-way street, and we want to hear from you too. Participate in focus groups and steering groups and make other contributions to the development of the vision. And over to you, anything that you feel would help with the development of the vision, or you feel we could help you with in your areas and your spaces. We really want to hear what you have to say. So anyone within the volunteering space can sign up as a vision champion. There is a form on our website. There's a button just below me down here that can help you to sign up to become a champion if that's something that you want to do. And finally, we do have a mailing list that you can sign up to learn more about what we're up to, see great case studies and see what events we've got coming up. We have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and you can always email our inbox as well, which I've put on the screen. You can email us and it's constantly manned. We're very responsive. So any questions or feedback or ideas or thoughts, please do get in touch. And finally, we do have a feedback form for you for today, which Alistair is just going to drop into the chat for you. So please do just take this last couple of minutes until 1 o'clock to answer those questions and let us know what you thought. It helps us to create amazing events and helps us to shape them after what you really want. So we really do listen to that feedback and take it to heart. So please do take it just a couple of minutes. It's only a handful of questions, just to let us know what you thought of this morning's session. And hopefully we will see you at future sessions. We have another one coming up on the 28th of February, and that one is around the theme of experimentation. It has been fully booked for a while, but people do cancel, so keep an eye on it, and maybe you can jump in on a slot if you haven't already. So fantastic session this morning. Thank you so much for coming along this morning. I'm really happy that you took the time out of your day to come and hear our great speakers. If there are any questions for me, we have 1 minute left, so I might be able to whiz through them. But if not, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week, and I hope to see you again at an event soon. Thank you.